Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, this is Allison Nissen with the Florida Writer Podcast. Today I am lucky enough to be sitting here with the book doctor, Bobbie Christmas. Hi, Bobbie. Why don't you give me your 60-second elevator pitch about you?
I am the book doctor, and I took on that moniker because when I edit books, I really go into depth. I analyze what might be wrong with the manuscript and how to make it better. I cure the ills of sick manuscripts.
How did you decide on becoming the book doctor?
It's an interesting change. I've always been an editor. My whole career has been writing and editing, but I was in the corporate world for the last part of my corporate career, and in critique circles, I was editing my friends' books for free because I'm an editor, and I was making a very good living in the corporate world. When the corporate world became toxic to me, and I knew it was time to do something else, I said, hey, I can charge people for editing books. And I loved it. I loved doing it. And so I leapt from the corporate ladder about 26 years ago and decided to edit books for a living.
And you just called yourself the book doctor? Was that initially, you just right out of the gate, you decided the name book doctor, or did that evolve?
That was an interesting change too. I was, of course, originally called myself an editor, but I started my business in 1992. That was also the era when publishing houses were merging and getting rid of their in-house editors because it was redundant to have two companies that merged and have all these manuscript editors. So they were kicking the editors off the staff, and also they were learning about contract working then. And so a lot of the editors would leave or were released from work, and they were working as contract editors without full-time pay, of course. And so the companies were saving money. The term just sort of evolved from all these contract editors that they were more of a book doctor and actually fixing things. And it really started as a term as in the screenwriting industry. The term was a screenwriter doctor or a screen doctor, or they had other terms for the screenwriters. And so we editors sort of stole that and became book doctors. But only the editors who really go in depth in a manuscript, not the line editors, the ones that are just fixing the commas. They are just editors.
They're just plain old editors.
That's right.
They don't get to do any doctoring.
They're still good, but you have to know what you're getting when you hire an editor.
Gotcha. So what do you have to know what you're getting when you hire an editor?
You have to know whether they're going to do copy editing or line editing. It means the same thing. It means fixing those commas, making sure the punctuation is correct, making sure the spelling of words are correct, and things like that. And if that person is going to do developmental editing, then that type of editor is going to look at the whole picture and give you feedback on whether the plot works, whether the characters are realistic, if the dialogue is strong enough. It really looks into the elements of the book. So you need to know when you hire your editor or before you hire your editor what you're going to get for the money that you're paying. I happen to do both at the same time, both the line editing and the content editing.
I like content editing. I think it's fun. You find those little holes, or like, oh wait, their eyes were blue. I know they were blue, and now they're green. And it will make me so angry. So I'm like, wait, no, we can't do that. And particularly if it's a book that's published, then I'm like, wait, what? An editor didn't fix this? So who needs editing?
Anybody who wants to sell their work.
Anyone.
Whether they want to sell it to a publishing house or self-publish it, they're going to have to sell it to clients or to book buyers. So if you want the book to be a good reflection on you, you need an editor. It used to be that publishing houses did do the editing for you. That's not the case anymore. So anybody who wants to publish a book needs an editor.
I always liken it to a coach. Tiger Woods has 3 coaches.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just get up every morning and play perfect. He needs somebody that's going to edit his strokes, which is kind of what I think an editor does. What is the biggest horror stories you've heard about editors?
About editors, I think the worst is anybody can call himself or herself an editor. There's no particular course that you take. There's no certified editor initials that you can have behind your name. So anybody can hang out a shingle and say that they're an editor. So the thing that I've heard is people who pay someone to edit their book, and then the editor decides he or she doesn't want to be an editor anymore, or this work is too hard, or whatever. I've heard of people who prepaid for their editing and never got the editing manuscript back. One person I know had her manuscript, this was when it was in hard copy, it was printed out. She sent a printed copy to an editor, and this is before computers, didn't keep a copy for herself.
No.
Never saw that manuscript again.
Oh, that's painful.
So it is, so although most of the editors do ask for you to pay either part or all in advance, so you need to make sure that your editor has been in business for a long time so that you know that that person will still be in business to finish your book. I've heard real horror stories about that. Also, there are companies that provide editing, and the horror stories that come from that when you're not dealing with an individual editor by name, and you know who you're dealing with, you might get you don't know who that editor is who's doing the work. You might get your work done by somebody who's in high school. You don't know what you're getting, and if you get a really bad edit for the same amount of money that you can get a good edit if you don't watch out.
I guess it's just like hiring a surgeon. You want to make sure you get the good surgeon.
That's right, the one with the experience.
The one with the experience, not the one right out of medical school. Or the fly-by-nights, the
Oh,
ones who put up a little box and they say, hey, here, come over here, I'll give you some Botox. How long does it take to edit a manuscript?
It does depend on the manuscript, of course. It takes a long time. I always say that I turn a manuscript around in 8 weeks or less. And so what that means is when you send your manuscript to me, I look at my schedule. I always have work on the books, always. Since I started editing books, I've never been without a project. So I look at how many projects I have ahead of yours, how long it'll take me to finish those, and then I can get to your project, and then how long it'll take. And I send you an email that tells you an estimated date when I'll be returning the manuscript. But it's always going to be within 8 weeks. If I can't do it within 8 weeks, we'll have to talk about it. But so far, everything's worked out that way. Sometimes it's a lot faster than that. Sometimes it's right at the 8 weeks. Sometimes I have to send an email and say it's going to be 2 more days than I estimated, but I'm always pretty close. Still, it takes me at least 2 weeks to edit the manuscript itself, but some of the time has to do with what I had to do before I got to your manuscript.
Well, what are the steps? So I guess what I'm thinking, my audience can't see me thinking, but
I can see.
You can see me thinking. Now, so let's suppose we do one round of edits. Do people do a multiple rounds? You just do one round and that's it?
Because of the way I work, we usually do one round, because when you hire me, you get a full report that explains everything that I've changed and why. So you learn so much in the process that if you make a lot of changes, you will have learned from my report how to fix anything else that you might add in or change. I have had a couple of people who wanted to send a manuscript to me for a second time. And when that's the case, then we come up with a price for that second time. It's going to be less than it cost for the first time. But I put my rates on my website, but I don't really post a rate for the second edit, because that depends on the manuscript itself. And the second edit depends on whether the author wants it or not.
What do you put in your reports?
Everything, Allison. What it does is it addresses all the elements of the manuscript. If it's fiction, those elements of plot, the characters, dialogue, of course, grammar, punctuation, and then creative writing tips, marketing information, whether it's what can make it more marketable. It doesn't tell you how to market. I'm not a marketer, but I can tell you how to make a book more marketable. For nonfiction, the elements would be organization, But again, it would be grammar and punctuation. It would be, what are some of the other elements? Some of always creative writing tips, how to make anything tighter, more creative, based on what I found in the manuscript. And I usually give examples that are from the manuscript so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. It explains every change that I made, too, so that you always know why I did something and you really learn in the process.
Is it possible to make a how-to book a page turner?
I hope so. I hope that my book, Writing Style, is a page turner because what I did with it, and somebody said to me, gee, what a shame, you're writing a book about creative writing, and yet you can't be creative while you're writing it. And I said, I think I can. I made it playful. I added funny mistakes that people have made. I call them manuslips. But they make they make a point. I use light language and contractions. It starts out, for instance, in the introduction. Many books have been written about grammar. This ain't one of them, and goes from there because it really is about creative writing.
Right. Okay. Biggest pet peeve when a manuscript comes in.
You know what it used to be, if I can say this. When everything was in hard copy, everything came in printed and in a box, and I opened it up and I smelled cigarette smoke.
Oh my goodness.
It had nothing to do with the manuscript itself. But now almost everything is done digitally, so we don't have that issue. It's fine if you smoke now.
Any words people should eliminate from their language? Writing language, not their spoken language.
But I do want to go back about the pet peeve, because that is important first. And when people send me what is obviously a first draft, and they haven't gone through it and made any improvements, and, really, really rough, and you do have to send something that's been a little bit polished as much as you can do. The time to send it to an editor is when you have that book the best you can make it, and then let me help polish it to a fine shine.
I like that tip. So many people don't want to edit. They figure they did all the hard work already. But someone had said this to me. It's like giving birth. Well, you've written and now you've given birth, but now you have to raise this child. 18 years, which includes your editing and your marketing. So editing stages would be like the terrible twos. And then, once you get to adulthood, they're 18 and it's off on its own and it's on the bookshelves and the world is a great place.
And really, I tell people they don't really have to worry about the editing part in the second draft. Just how to make it the best they can be, whatever that means. It could be writing more creatively. It could be recognizing sentences that are out of place or awkward and revising a sentence here and there. It's just that little bit of polish and shine, whatever you're capable of doing. But you asked about words you can't use. Really, my book, Writing Style, addresses a lot of words that you can find in your manuscript and make better because they're either boring or overused or just not creative. Words like beautiful in narrative. Beautiful doesn't give you a description. Lovely doesn't give you sexy. That's not a description. So what I tell people is when they use words like that are personal opinion adjectives, you might look at those and think of a better way to describe what you're talking about instead of just using a word that is an opinion.
I like that tip. I like that tip a lot. I'm going to remember it.
Okay.
I've always known, this word doesn't really mean anything. What is a lot? How much is that? I teach writing, and someone will turn in something that says a lot, and I'll say, well, how much is that? An acre? 2 acres? 5 acres? I have no idea. How much is it?
Have a house on it?
Exactly. So tell me what a lot means. Bobbie Christmas, the book doctor. This has been fantastic. Thank you for stopping by. Now we're going into our rapid fire. All right, Bobbie Christmas.
Yes.
What chore do you hate doing?
What chore do I hate doing? I hate going to the post office. And, I've been editing manuscripts for a long time. So it used to be you mailed them in to me, and I had to put them back in a box and drive to the post office and mail them. And now everything's electronic, and I am happy. I still do sometimes get a manuscript that's printed out, and I work on it that way. But now the post office will pick it up, too. So I'm really happy. I don't go to the post office anymore.
Awesome. iPhone or Samsung? I hear your phone beeping in the background. iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
iPhone.
Did I pass or fail?
Oh, There's no pass or fail.
Okay.
Favorite day of the week?
This is a hard one because I work from home and they're all the same to me. People will say on a Friday, a salesperson will say, have a good weekend. I thought, oh, it's the weekend. Because I'm going to work anyway. I love what I'm doing. So I don't have a favorite day.
My parents are retired and they say they know the day of the week by the size of the newspaper. the fat one comes on Sunday.
Well, I'm born on Wednesday, so that's pretty good.
All right. That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. Bobbie Christmas, thanks so much for stopping by. This is Allison Nissen, and you're listening to the Florida Writer Podcast. Allison out. Book doctor Bobbie Christmas has been a professional editor for 45 years. She founded Zebra Communications in 1992, specifically to edit books, and her company is still going strong. For more information about Bobbie Christmas or her company, Zebra Communications, visit them on the web at www.zebraeditor.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at www.floridawriters.net.